She said, "You'll never understand because no one will ever love you enough to marry you." The boutique froze. Her diamond ring had just sliced my cheek open and blood dripped onto the carpet. But Amanda had no idea that her perfect $100,000 wedding would collapse with one click. My name is Valerie Hayes. I'm 29, and I never thought my own sister's wedding would become a story about betrayal and justice. I work as a financial analyst in Chicago, a world built on numbers, caution, and long hours under fluorescent lights. My sister Amanda lives in Boston, a PR executive who could turn any lie into a lifestyle post. Growing up, she was the golden one, our mother's reflection in a younger mirror, while I was the quiet observer, useful only when she needed something done. When Amanda got engaged, the announcement arrived like a press release, complete with professional photos and hashtags. At the holiday dinner, Mom cried over the ring as if it were a national treasure. Dad raised a glass but kept his eyes low, the same way he always did when the spotlight landed on Amanda. I smiled through it, thinking maybe this time the celebration would heal the gap that had always existed between us. "Val, you have to be my maid of honor," Amanda said, pressing her hand over mine. "You've always been my rock." I believed her. I wanted to believe that after years of being compared, mocked, and quietly dismissed, she finally saw me. I threw myself into helping her, tracking budgets, researching venues, scheduling meetings. When I emailed her a cost breakdown, she laughed. "You're such a spreadsheet soul, Val. Just relax. It's a wedding, not a merger." Mom nodded along, sipping her wine. "Your sister's wedding should sparkle, dear. Let her enjoy it." Sparkle. That was always the word around Amanda. Sparkle, shine, perfect. Mine was different. Stable, responsible, replaceable. Still, I tried. Every dress fitting, every floral call, I showed up. When Amanda asked to put a few deposits on my card just for convenience, I didn't question it. Family, right? That's what family does. Except something in her tone that night lingered longer than the champagne fizz. "You'll get it back once Jackson's trust fund clears," she said, casual as if mentioning the weather. I nodded, but inside, a flicker of unease moved through me. Later, as I packed her invoices into color-coded folders, I noticed small details. Totals rounded strangely, vendor names I'd never seen, luxury hotels I hadn't booked. I told myself I was overthinking. I always did. But the wound that had opened years ago, the one carved by favoritism, silence, and invisible comparisons, was beginning to bleed again. Amanda's laughter still echoed in my head. The teasing, the subtle digs, the way she turned pain into performance. I thought about the night she called me too serious to be lovable. I laughed it off back then. I shouldn't have. As I zipped the binder shut, I whispered to myself, "This time will be different." I didn't know that saying yes to being her maid of honor meant signing away my boundaries. I didn't know that saying yes meant signing away my boundaries. 2 months later, the first cracks began to show, over dinner in New York, where one careless sentence would set everything in motion. "Have you ever done everything right and still been treated like you were never enough?" That's how it started, the slow erosion of reason disguised as wedding excitement. Every time I opened my laptop, another invoice appeared, another text thread filled with exclamation marks and demands. Amanda and Mom had turned planning into a performance, and I was the invisible stage crew holding up the set. The first time I showed them the budget spreadsheet, Amanda wrinkled her nose. "Val, this is so cold. No one wants to see numbers at a bridal brunch." Mom chimed in without looking up from her phone. "Your sister's wedding isn't a business proposal, dear." I stared at the screen, at the formulas I'd built to track every cent. They saw control. I saw survival. By the third week, prices began to double. The bridesmaid dresses Amanda chose went from $250 to $520 overnight. When I hesitated, one of her friends smirked. "Oh, that's nothing for someone who's so meticulous." The table laughed. Amanda didn't stop them. She laughed louder. I told myself it didn't matter. I was helping her dream come true. But dreams have line items. During a meeting with the florist, I overheard one of the vendors mention, Amanda said just send invoices to her sister's card. My pen froze mid-note. My card, not hers. Amanda caught my eye across the table and smiled, a too wide, glossy smile. Don't worry, Val. It's just to hold things until Jackson's trust fund clears. That phrase, until Jackson's trust fund clears, became her favorite magic trick. It silenced objections, delayed accountability, and painted me as uptight whenever I questioned anything. Still, I stayed quiet. Peace was easier than confrontation. Always had been. That night, over takeout boxes and cold coffee, I called Diana Williams, my law school roommate turned corporate attorney. I told her about the invoices, the tone, the laughter. She didn't hesitate. Start saving the receipts. All of them. I did. Within days, more inconsistencies appeared. Jewelry charges I hadn't authorized, a luxury hotel booking in her name, a floral upgrade for a venue I'd never visited. Each transaction hit my phone like a heartbeat. When I confronted her, Amanda brushed it off. Relax, Val. You'll get it back. You always do. Her confidence was unnerving, like she'd already written my forgiveness into the plan. Then came the cake tasting. The email arrived the same week as my final interview for a long-awaited promotion. I told Amanda I couldn't make both. Her response, wow, so your job is more important than my wedding now. The group chat lit up with passive-aggressive hearts and laughing emojis, so I canceled the meeting. I showed up to the bakery, smiled through the sugar, and listened as she told everyone how lucky she was to have a sister who always takes care of the boring parts. That night, as I scrubbed frosting from my sleeve, I felt it. The quiet burn of resentment. The kind that doesn't explode yet, just simmers. And that's when Diana said something that stuck with me. If you want peace, start keeping proof. I didn't know it yet, but that advice would change everything. Amanda smiled, confident. Little did she know I was already tracking every dollar. By March, the wedding had evolved from a family event into a national production. The new venue? A seaside resort on Cape Cod with 300 guests, drone photography, and a champagne fountain taller than me. Every time I refreshed my account, another unauthorized charge appeared. $4,800 for lighting, $6,200 for catering upgrades, $3,000 for floral arches I'd never approved. When I called her, she spoke like a CEO reassuring a nervous investor. Val, it's temporary. Jackson's funds will clear next week. Next week never came. Her calm made it worse. It wasn't panic, it was entitlement, like using me was part of her birthright. One afternoon, I opened my email to find florist receipts addressed to Amanda Hayes, paid in full. Attached was my own card statement. In the same hour, she posted a photo online. Champagne glass in hand, captioned, "We pay for everything ourselves because that's how real love works." Thousands of likes. I stared at the screen until the light from it blurred. When I told Dad, he sighed. Family supports family, Valerie. Your sister's under a lot of pressure. Pressure. That word again, as if it explained everything. I didn't argue. I just started saving proof. Diana taught me how. Record calls, screenshot every confirmation. Don't confront her until you can make it undeniable. So I did. Every temporary charge, every casual promise went into a private folder named Cape Cod Ledger. Weeks passed. My apartment turned into a case file. Manila folders, printed invoices, sticky notes tracking payment trails. I barely slept. I worked, then audited my own finances like a crime scene. Amanda called often, her tone sugary, her voice rehearsed. Hey, sis, can you resend your card details? The old one keeps declining. I canceled it, I said flatly. She laughed, pretending not to hear. Mom called next. Sweetheart, don't be dramatic. You know Amanda always pays you back. No one wanted the truth. They wanted peace. And peace always cost me. That night, Diana and I sat in her office, the blinds half closed. I handed her a folder of evidence. She flipped through it silently. Florist emails, hotel bookings, transfers between accounts, she said, tapping the pages. This isn't confusion, Val. It's fraud. The word hung in the air. Fraud. I stared at it, feeling the floor tilt under me. But she's my sister. Diana looked at me over her glasses. That doesn't make it legal. When I left her office, downtown lights reflected on the rain-soaked pavement like shattered glass. I walked fast, cold air biting at my skin, my mind looping through every memory. Amanda borrowing clothes, skipping bills, charming her way out of blame. The pattern had always been there, I just hadn't wanted to see it. The lies weren't cracks yet, just hairlines. But they were spreading. By then, I didn't know the next meeting on my calendar would draw real blood. Looking back, I should have seen the signs. Her confidence was just arrogance wearing diamonds. The boutique shimmered with chandeliers and champagne flutes, pastel gowns lined like trophies against mirrored walls. Everyone sparkled, except me. I'd come straight from work. Gray blazer, scuffed heels, no makeup. I hadn't even known it was a private fitting until the receptionist whispered, "They've been waiting for you." Amanda emerged from behind the curtain in a custom Vera Lang gown that looked like liquid pearl. $10,000 of silk arrogance. The assistants gasped. Mom clasped her hands as if witnessing divinity. I stared, speechless. "Amanda, this isn't the dress we discussed. You said—" She cut me off with a wave. "Don't ruin the moment, Val. You worry too much about money." I tried again, softer. "We agreed to stay within the budget." Amanda's smile sharpened. "Budget? You mean your obsession with control?" She tilted her head, eyes glinting. "You're just jealous because no one wants you." The room went still. Even the air stopped moving. Then came the slap. Her diamond ring tore through my skin with surgical precision, a flash of heat, the sound of champagne glasses clinking, then falling silent. Blood dripped down my cheek and onto the white carpet, blooming like a signature no one wanted to claim. For a second, no one moved. Then Mom, Charlotte, rushed forward, but not to me. "Amanda, honey, calm down. You're just stressed." I pressed my hand to my face, feeling the sting, the humiliation. "She hit me," I whispered. Charlotte turned, her tone clipped. "Valerie, don't make this worse. You know how sensitive your sister is." Sensitive. That word again. Used to excuse everything and everyone except me. Across the room, one of the boutique clerks stared, horrified, frozen between duty and disbelief. Cameras blinked quietly above us, red dots recording every second. Proof, silent and patient. Amanda smoothed her dress, breathing hard. "You should leave," she said. "You're ruining my fitting." So I did. Outside, the February wind bit through my coat as I pressed a towel against my face. My reflection in the boutique window looked foreign, blood-streaked, shaking, yet somehow calm. Years of swallowing hurt had trained me for this kind of numbness. I reached my car, started the engine, and finally exhaled. My hands trembled so violently I could barely shift gears. The smell of iron filled the small space. Then my phone buzzed. Amanda's text, "Don't forget to pay the balance tomorrow." My jaw locked. The audacity was almost elegant. For the first time in years, I didn't reply. I drove home in silence, headlights slicing through sleet, my cheek throbbing in rhythm with my pulse. That night, as I cleaned the wound under cold water, the cut burned deeper than skin. It was the final proof that love without respect is just manipulation dressed in silk. And when my phone rang, it was Diana. Her voice was steady, the kind that cuts through panic. "Valerie, it's time," she said. "Stop protecting them. Start protecting yourself." That was the night I finally decided to listen. The next morning, the room went quiet. Everyone was watching. Not a literal room this time, but the invisible one that existed online. The family chats, the vendors' threads, the social whispers that traveled faster than truth. After the slap, I stopped explaining myself. I started documenting. Diana helped me build a case like a crime analyst, card statements arranged chronologically, Photos of my cut, time-stamped, screenshots of the bridesmaids' chat mocking my dramatic meltdown. A still frame from Amanda's Instagram story, her in that 10 grand gown captioned, "We pay for everything ourselves." The hypocrisy was cinematic. Diana's office smelled faintly of espresso and printer ink. She slid a paper across the desk. "This is a formal demand for repayment," she said. "We'll call it fraudulent misrepresentation." I read the header twice. Legal words felt heavier when attached to blood ties. "Would that make me cruel?" I asked. She leaned back. "Cruelty is pretending this didn't happen." Later, in therapy, I asked the same question. Dr. Levine didn't hesitate either. "It's not revenge, Valerie, it's self-protection." That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat on my living room floor surrounded by evidence, my cat weaving between stacks of paper. Each receipt was a small betrayal, printed in black ink and corporate logos. At midnight, I opened my bank app. My fingers hovered over the screen for a long moment. Then I did it. I canceled my platinum card, reported it as compromised. One click, and every vendor tied to Amanda's fantasy lost their oxygen supply. The next morning, the chaos began. At the Cape Cod resort, the coordinator called Amanda about payment declines. The florist posted a polite but public comment, awaiting updated billing details. The caterer left a voicemail demanding confirmation or cancellation. By noon, whispers were circulating in her social circle. Didn't Amanda say she paid everything up front? Screenshots flew faster than apologies. Mom called first. "Valerie, what did you do? Amanda's wedding is falling apart." I kept my voice calm. "I stopped financing fraud." "You're being dramatic," she snapped. "You're humiliating your sister." "She did that herself," I said, and hung up. I walked to the window, city lights flickering like judgment. Somewhere out there, Amanda was scrambling, rewriting narratives, calling banks, but this time I wasn't her cleanup crew. By evening, she went live on Instagram, crying into perfect lighting. "It's been a hard day," she said, voice trembling. "Some people can't stand to see others happy." Comments flooded in, half sympathy, half speculation. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Instead, I opened my laptop. Files neatly labeled, evidence, photos, vendor invoices, audio recordings. The cursor blinked, waiting. Because what I was about to show them wasn't just proof. It was truth. Organized, time-stamped, undeniable. And when the time came to click play, no one would be laughing anymore. But first, I had one final test to run. I took a deep breath, hit enter, and watched the folders load. Then I whispered, "Let's finish this." The screen glowed against the dark room, and within minutes, the truth came knocking. It was a gray Saturday afternoon when my doorbell rang like a siren. 3 short bursts, then pounding. I opened the door and there they were, Amanda, Jackson, Charlotte, and my father Robert, standing in a line like a tribunal. Amanda wore sunglasses indoors, her engagement ring flashing under the hallway light. She didn't wait for an invitation. "Reactivate the card and fix my vendors," she demanded, stepping inside. "You embarrassed me publicly. Everyone's talking about it." I stood still, blocking the living room threshold. "I'm done being used." Her laugh was sharp, brittle. "Used? You ruined my wedding because you're jealous." I folded my arms. "If your happiness depends on my silence, it's not happiness, it's theft." The words landed heavier than I expected. Charlotte gasped softly. Jackson crossed his arms, jaw tight. Dad said nothing. Amanda's tone rose to a shout. "Do you even understand what you've done? Do you know how many people are calling me? You made me look broke." I turned to the coffee table where my laptop waited. Calm, deliberate, I opened it and clicked on a folder labeled Truth. "You want to talk about what I did? Let's do that," I said. A recording filled the apartment. Amanda's voice from a week earlier, light and manipulative. "Just send the invoices to Val's card. Jackson's trust fund will clear next week." Then my reply, "Amanda, that's not what we agreed on," followed by her laugh. "Relax, sis. You'll get it back. You always do." Charlotte's eyes darted between us. "Amanda, please tell me this is a misunderstanding." Amanda's mask slipped, but only for a second. "She's twisting things. She records people now. That's how bitter she is." "Bitter," I said quietly. "Bitter is paying for your fraud." Her voice cracked. "You're jealous and pathetic. You can't stand that I'm finally loved." Something in me broke free. I clicked to the next file, the boutique footage. The sound of fabric rustling, the echo of that slap, my sharp gasp, and the silence that followed filled the room. The image froze on screen. Amanda's hand raised, my face turned in shock, blood visible against the white carpet. Charlotte's hand went to her mouth. "Oh my God!" Robert exhaled, shoulders collapsing. Amanda's voice trembled. "That video's out of context. I didn't mean to—" "You meant every word," I said, "and you made sure no one believed me." I opened one more file, a scanned legal letter on Diana's letterhead, stamped and dated. Fraudulent misrepresentation, restitution demanded in full. Amanda's face drained of color. "You wouldn't dare send that." "I already did." Silence settled thick as dust. Then Jackson muttered, "Enough!" Amanda turned, furious. "Don't you start." But he wasn't looking at her, he was looking at me. "She's right. We used her credit to furnish the E. Hampton's Place. You said it was temporary." The words hit like a detonator. Charlotte froze. Dad sat down, his voice breaking for the first time. "Amanda, is that true?" Amanda's eyes widened, desperate. "We just needed a few months. I was going to fix it." "By lying?" I asked. She turned on me, shouting through tears. "You don't get it. You've always had everything easy. Dad's trust, Mom's approval." I laughed once bitterly. "No, Amanda, you got their approval. I just paid for it." Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. The fight drained from her shoulders. She looked smaller now, fragile, cornered, almost human. Charlotte whispered, "I don't even know who you are." Amanda spun toward her. "Mom, please." But Robert raised his hand, stopping them both. I let the laptop screen dim to black. The silence that followed wasn't awkward, it was cleansing. For the first time in years, I didn't feel outnumbered. Amanda dropped onto the couch, mascara streaking, muttering half-sentences about stress, money, betrayal. Jackson paced the floor, hands buried in his hair. Charlotte stared at the carpet, eyes hollow. I sat across from them, the faint hum of my laptop fan filling the space where excuses used to live. My hands still trembled, but this time not from fear. It was power finding its way back into my body. Amanda looked up, voice small. "What do you want from me?" I met her gaze. Accountability. Nothing more, nothing less. No one moved. The sound of city traffic filtered through the window, distant, steady, indifferent. Then my father stood. His voice was rough, almost foreign. "Enough." He looked at Amanda, then at me. "It's time we tell the truth." The room went utterly still. The words that followed changed everything. For a long moment, none of us moved. The air in my apartment felt heavy, like the space itself was holding its breath. Amanda sat slumped on the couch, her hands shaking as she wiped at mascara streaks that only smeared darker. Charlotte stood behind her, eyes darting between us, desperate to glue the family image back together with silence. Jackson hovered near the doorway, clearly wishing he'd never come. My father broke the stillness. His voice was lower than I'd ever heard. "I failed both of you," he said, "but I won't fail again." Amanda looked up, stunned. "Dad, you don't understand." "I do," he cut in. "I've been pretending not to for years." Charlotte tried to step forward. "Robert, this isn't helping." He turned sharply toward her. "Stop!" The single word hit the room like a gavel. "You've protected appearances your whole life. Look where it's led us." Charlotte froze. Her face softened, but her voice cracked. "I was trying to keep the family together." He shook his head. No, you were trying to keep it quiet. Amanda started crying harder, the sound jagged and raw. You all think I'm some monster. I was just trying to make things perfect. I stayed still, hands clasped, forcing myself to breathe evenly. Perfect for who? I asked quietly. She looked up at me, her eyes glossy and desperate. You ruined my life, Valerie. You humiliated me in front of everyone. You made me look like a criminal. I felt the sting of tears behind my own eyes, but my voice stayed soft. You did that yourself. Silence again. Only the sound of her breathing filled the space. Charlotte reached for her daughter's shoulder, but Amanda jerked away. Don't touch me, she said. You always take her side now. Charlotte whispered, I'm not taking sides. I'm trying to help. Too late, Amanda muttered. Robert took a slow step toward the door, his hand brushing against the wall as if steadying himself. We'll fix what can be fixed, he said. But this lying, this stealing, it stops now. He turned to me. You did the right thing. For a second, I wanted to collapse into that approval, to finally feel like being honest hadn't cost me everything. But the damage was done. Charlotte grabbed her purse, her voice thin. Come on, Amanda, let's go. Amanda stood, wobbling slightly in her heels. She looked around my apartment, the same place she'd once mocked for being minimalist to the point of sadness. Her voice was small now. I don't even know who I am anymore. I said nothing. There was nothing left to say. They filed out one by one, Robert last. Before stepping through the door, he paused, meeting my eyes. I'll call you soon, he said. When the door clicked shut, the silence returned, but this time it wasn't suffocating. It was empty and strangely clean. I leaned against the wall, every muscle in my body finally unclenching. My heartbeat slowed, steady but tired. The adrenaline that had fueled me through confrontation drained away, leaving only exhaustion. Then the tears came. Not loud or dramatic, just steady, silent grief that burned hot on my cheeks. I walked to the bathroom and turned on the light. The mirror caught me off guard. I saw the faint scar along my cheek, thin but unmissable, a pale mark cutting through the reflection of someone who looked older and somehow lighter. For the first time, I didn't turn away. The sound faded around me, the hum of the fridge, the noise of cars outside, until all I could hear was the low thump of my own heartbeat. It filled the silence like a metronome, slow, steady, alive. Somewhere in that quiet rhythm, I realized that the pain wasn't just from Amanda's betrayal. It was from years of believing I had to earn love by enduring it. I touched the scar gently. It didn't ache anymore. When I finally went to bed, dawn was starting to break. The city outside glowed faintly pink, and for the first time in years, I slept without dreaming of being smaller. The next morning, I woke to an email notification. The subject line read, "I'm proud of you." It was from Dad. The message was short, just 3 sentences. "I'm proud of you for standing up. You were right to protect yourself. Check your account." Below it was a transfer notice, partial repayment of the wedding charges, quiet restitution, no drama, no speech, just action. I stared at it for a long time. It wasn't about the money. It was the acknowledgement I'd been chasing since childhood, finally delivered in the language I understood best: accountability. Still, I didn't reply. Not yet. I needed time to breathe before reopening old doors. The rest of the day passed in strange stillness. I cleaned the apartment, sorted the papers, filed everything neatly into boxes marked closed. When I reached the folder labeled Amanda, I hesitated. Then I sealed it shut with tape. Late that night, I stepped out onto my balcony. The city shimmered below, neon reflections on wet asphalt, faint music from a bar down the block, the smell of rain in the air. Somewhere out there, Amanda was probably trying to rebuild her version of perfection. I didn't wish her harm. I just didn't wish her control. The cold air brushed my cheek, catching the light of that small scar again. For the first time, it didn't feel like evidence. It felt like closure. And in the days that followed, I learned something unexpected. Healing isn't one big moment. It's a series of quiet choices, day after day, until peace finally sticks. A few weeks later, one of those choices took me to Bali. The first morning in Bali began with lights spilling through gauzy curtains, gold and soft as forgiveness. The ocean was close enough that I could hear it breathe, slow, steady waves, like the sound of someone finally calming down after a long cry. I sat on the balcony with a notebook in my lap, coffee steaming beside me, and wrote a sentence I'd never thought I'd mean. I don't need their approval anymore. For the first few days, I didn't check emails or bank statements or headlines about the Hayes wedding fiasco. I let the noise dissolve into salt air and birdsong. I swam at sunrise, ate fruit I couldn't name, and slept without alarms. When I finally opened my notebook again, I wrote only single words: peace, clarity, freedom. Each one felt earned. During my final therapy session before the trip, Dr. Levine had said, "You've spent most of your life trying to fix other people's chaos by shrinking yourself smaller. Maybe healing isn't about forgiving them first. It's about forgiving yourself for staying so long." She was right. Sitting there, notebook in hand, I could finally feel the truth of that. By the time I flew home, the wound on my cheek had faded to a pale line. People rarely noticed it, but I did. Every morning it reminded me where my boundaries started. 6 months later, my life looked the same from the outside but felt entirely different from the inside. I'd accepted a senior analyst position at a new firm. Bigger salary, better team, fewer nights spent proving my worth. I redesigned my apartment. New paint, soft lighting, art that made me laugh instead of impress guests. The files and folders that once lined my walls were gone. In their place were plants, photographs of friends, postcards from places I wanted to see. Those friends, my chosen family, became the constant I hadn't known I was missing. We cooked together, celebrated small wins, left each other notes on the fridge. There was no guilt, no transaction, just people who stayed because they wanted to, not because they owed anyone anything. Sometimes, when the city went quiet, I'd think about Amanda, not with rage anymore, but with something closer to distance. Christmas came cold that year, sharp and clean. Snow dusted the windowsills of my Chicago apartment like powdered sugar. I'd just finished wrapping gifts for a charity drive when the intercom buzzed. Robert stood downstairs holding a paper bag and looking unsure. I buzzed him up. He brought cookies, store-bought, burnt at the edges, but the gesture was real. "Your mother's in Florida," he said awkwardly. "She wanted me to give you this." He handed me a small envelope. Inside was a folded card, cream-colored, written in Charlotte's perfect cursive. "I'm sorry for not protecting you when I should have. I hope you're finding peace. Mom." No grand speeches, no excuses, just that. For her, it was monumental. Robert stayed for coffee. We didn't talk about the wedding or money or the months of silence. We talked about music, about how his hands ached in winter, about the new bakery on my street. When he left, he hugged me tighter than he ever had before. After the door closed, I realized something important. Closure didn't arrive in dramatic apologies or perfect endings. It came quietly, in moments where you could finally breathe without waiting for the next betrayal. 2 weeks later, my phone rang with a number I hadn't seen in months. I almost didn't answer. "Val?" The voice was fragile, stripped of its usual gloss. "It's me, Amanda." There was a long pause before she spoke again. I didn't know who else to call. Her words stumbled like she was speaking through regret. "Jackson left. The house, it's gone. I'm starting over, but I just need a small loan. Just until—" I closed my eyes. Somewhere deep inside, the old instinct flickered. The urge to fix, to rescue, to prove I was still the good sister. But I didn't move toward it. "No, I said softly. Silence. Then a small gasp. No? That's love with boundaries, I said. I hope you find yours. She didn't answer. The line clicked. For once, I didn't feel guilt, only peace. A few days later, I walked home from work under the soft glow of city lights, my scarf wrapped high against the wind. Passing by a boutique window, I caught my reflection. The scar on my cheek glinted faintly under the glass. No longer raw, no longer shameful, just part of me. Behind the reflection, mannequins in wedding dresses stood frozen in perfect poses. I watched them for a moment, remembering the girl who once thought being loved meant being quiet. She was gone now. In her place stood a woman who had learned to stay upright even when the room fell silent. I smiled at the reflection. The glass didn't look like a barrier anymore. It looked like a mirror for someone new. What I learned is that love without respect isn't love at all. Family isn't about blind loyalty. It's about honesty and accountability. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do is say no. I know some people will listen to this story and feel that same hesitation I once did, the ache of wanting to keep the peace, even when peace costs your dignity. If that's you, let this be proof that you can walk away from people you still love and still wish them well and still survive. You can start over at 29 or 50 or 70. You can build a family from scratch, not out of obligation, but out of choice. Every boundary you set is a small act of self-respect, and every time you say no to manipulation, you're saying yes to freedom. I'd love to know where this story has reached on our planet. Comment below and tell me where you're watching from. Subscribe if this story made you feel something. Your support keeps these stories alive. Thank you for listening.